are now in a case where we have to decide what will the future transport and rail look like. Will we only address the main lines with a high capacity, high speed trains, or the urban areas that's very well transport, or will we also address the rural areas? Will give the people outside the country the possibility to get to the rail? And I also think we have a lot of challenges. For example, regarding the autonomous driven cars, if they're electrical, why do we need trains? To provocate a little bit. For sure we need trains because we don't have any possibility to transport so many people. And I think we are now in a very challenging time at the moment.
Thank you very much. So we are going to continue with our next panelist, Wolfgang from Weitzer Woodsolutions. Maybe you can present as well your company, what the product, and what relation it has with the pods and railway systems. Please.
Thank you very much. It's a very great honor to be here, to listen very carefully to this consortium. And as I heard before, I think I'm very thin ice too, because we're new to this business. For us, as an initial statement, I'm fully with you. We're in this transition phase. And we are coming from the other side. I was very lucky about seeing your business models, and there's also a place for manufacturer there, because that's what we are. And we have a huge opportunity in Europe, which is not so seen. It's wood, and it's structural wood, and we are the only continent with 96% sustainable forest management, and it's completely overseen all the time. And if I see this, or these use cases, for instance, we have to prepare for very unfortunately realistic scenarios. In the meantime, I think we have to focus on these strengths again. And industrial manufacturing was and is one of the strengths of Europe. And sometimes politics, it seems for us as industries, is focusing on weaknesses. The last Commission report was we have to focus on these 3 weaknesses and we have to put them away. We say, okay, let's do this, plus focus on our strengths. And we have brought wood back to structural components, mainly in automotive nowadays, with all the requirements which are there, with all the predominant things like wood burns, wood has a problem with structural elements, wood has a problem with water. We solved them all. And we are a very proud partner of some companies which are already here at this table today, also in the rail industry, and manufacturing components there in an early stage, but very far. And therefore, I'm really lucky to be here on this panel and have also a presentation later on to show you what we are manufacturing already and how it could be, or which of our components may look like your pods already. Yeah, thank you for having me.
Thank you very much. And I would like to say hello as well to Franz-Stefan Weigl from ÖBB, also EURNEXe. So if you want to give an initial statement before we start the panel.
Thank you very much. So first of all, I want to thank Dirk for inviting me. I'm the flagship manager of FP6 Regional Railways. And I think it's very good that we speak, because there are many touch points between regional railways and this your very futuristic flagship. What I think is interesting is the question raised by Jens to see, like, okay, we seem to agree that the long distance, high speed rail network will be there in the future, but what about the regional railways? Yeah? I think there the situation or the answer is not so obvious. What I think is obvious, and what I think, and don't record that session and look at it in 20 years, because we may be smiling what we say today, yeah? But I assume that certain components will not change, components in the way how people think. People always act in an economic manner. What is the economic in the terms of time? What is the most economic way from me living in Vienna reaching Pilsen? That question I asked myself before getting here. Financially and time-wise. And the third component is the comfort component. And if I listen to what Walter has said before, the Uber and the space that we have, I think all these let's say criteria fit into the 3 economy of time, economy of financial effort, and comfort. And I don't think that will change in the future. And now I want to fit the regional railways into that context. If regional railways will match this criteria, then I think there is also a future for regional railways. And then I want to come back to one aspect of your slide of the growing population and the growing urban agglomeration. We see it already that in some mega cities, the only way to reach the city center in a reasonable time with a regional effort is a kind of regional local railway. So my personal belief is there will be space for both. It just needs to be attractive and intelligently combined.
Thank you very much. We have prepared a set of questions for you, so you can discuss about them. One, and I will start from this part of the table. It's like in recent years, the car and the private mobility has been the dominant. And it's also sometimes attributed to the personal freedom of the people, forcing them to not using the car or indirectly rising the prices of the gasoline or the electric supply or the parking spots is sometimes look from the users as an aggression to their own freedom, liberty. But on the other hand, it's not good for the environment, it's not good for the use. Why some citizens that don't use this resource need to pay for the damage that these cars are creating or the trucks in terms of pollution, noise, etc., and use of space. So sometimes it's given to us, the people normally working in the public transport, their responsibility. So you have to improve, you have to offer solutions, you have to, and then there's this discussion which also reaches the political area in which money invested for infrastructure. But so the question, as you are a person that is involved in the operation area, in the railway operator, is big role for the operators to improve the situation and regain or gain these passengers with attractive solutions, with providing flexibility, providing geographical coverage. How much of this capacity is still in our hands without depending on the politics to put money? Can we improve? Can we get more digital? Can we gain this? So can you reflect a little bit on what we can do to seduce in a smart way the citizens without giving this impression that we are telling them, no, you are not free. Now you have to go with the other ones. What can be done?
I think that's a very critical and not easy to answer the question. And that's why you put it on the table, I guess. Yeah, I think we are all technical people, but we should not underestimate the value or the influence of politics to our daily life. And I'm afraid I need to tell you a sad story, which just happens in my country, that the newly forming government is considering to decide to raise the maximum speed limit on motorways from 130 to 150 kilometers per hour. Is that a move in the right direction? I think, well, you can imagine what my answer is. So I think all our technology it can be as good as it should be. And of course, there's a lot of room of improvement, but we need also to have the right political framework to continue and to grow that. Yeah. How much does one value the other? I think it needs to be both. Yeah. And we are also, doing large infrastructure investments. And again, I'm sitting here for the European Union, but still very Austrian. We spend most of our money underneath the earth. We have our huge tunnel projects, which are gigantic infrastructure projects, which are there for the next 150 years. That's how these things are conceived. The re-election period is 4 to 5 years. So don't overestimate politics. If it is purely a political decision, you would never build the Brenner Basis Tunnel, which connects Austria and Italy. So I think it needs both. I think we also have an influence where we make our cross when we are asked to go to elections. But I'm not going to make a political campaign here. But I think we have to be careful. And I think we all have a say because we are in the end the state, we are the voters, yeah, but we also the consumer of that infrastructure. So to make the long story short, we need both. Yeah, it cannot be one or the other.
Thank you very much. Going to our next panelist. When we think about wood, it's normally not something that you associate to cars, although there are some cars that I think they're built of steel. Yeah. It's not the Morgan built of.
Maybe Morgan, yeah.
A luxurious car. And it's something that you associate with all trains, no? Like wood. And sometimes, well, or luxus. When you see wood panels in cars, you say, well, this is like. So how would you visualize the comfort or the luxus perception or a comfy perception of the passengers that could use interiors made of wood? What is your concept, and what advantages it has in structural protection, crash worthiness, etc.? So this is.
Thank you for the question. When it comes to luxury, a big OEM of Germany did the global study of what the feeling of wood is. And it really came out that always, if you use wood, you feel at home and you feel comfortable, and it's a sign of luxury. Almost all the interior parts nowadays used in cars are not really structural. They give the impression of this wood. But where we turn to be is now that we have wood really in structural components, in lightweighting aspects, because we have a density of about, if we have functionalized the wood, of 860 kilograms per cubic meter. So we are way lighter than plastics, and oftentimes as aluminum, of course, and of steel. But we have certain functionality to our requirements. So we cannot simply say, okay, steel is bad, aluminum is bad. No, that's not the case. But wood has lightweighting potentials. It has really potential when it comes to, and now hold the desk, when it comes to fire resistance, because it's carbonizing itself. We only have to do that. And when you come back to the expeditionary forces, it's sometimes still necessary to use wood because there was nothing else as resources back then. So what we did, we used this often used word today, digitalization and artificial intelligence and algorithms. And we thought about what was missing about wood. Exactly, material cards. Engineering bases in faculties which are on the mechanical side to really predict wood, to do that. So we have the predictability nowadays. We have certificates when it comes to fire resistance and other things. And I have to say, standards in the railway business, you're top of the class. So if you come here, so this is really, here you have to prove yourself. So this is really the thing. And we have that now. And I would say, really combining these elements with wooden structural components, having it really as a resource nowadays here, going back maybe to ideas which were long there, fit that to new, I would say, models and so on, give this new material, not this old look, but a high-tech lightweighting material. I think then we have a chance to be part of this revolution, to get lighter, to use less energy, and to decarbonize.
Thank you very much. Jens, talking about the future of the European mobility, there are some questions that the automotive industry nowadays, it's in a pessimistic track, being somehow lost the battle against the electrification. Having important, let's say, market aggressions from Asian areas in which they apparently are not able to go, even in the luxus segment, in the electrification. But this job we have done in railways, it's mostly electrified. And there's only the challenge on digitalization and modularity that we talk about today, and also the interoperability. So could you, from your perspective, what you visualize an optimistic railway system in 20 years? Can you tell us how could you visualize this optimistic area of the European railways?
Yes, I think a very important issue is to don't stand at a topic which we are at the moment. We have to go forward. We have to analyze what is necessary at the moment and what is necessary for the future. And therefore, we have to work on different topics. One is, for example, what already Walter showed, that we try to find a solution how we can also drive our trains economically and ecologically on the areas where there's no catenary, for example. In Germany, we have more than 35% which is not electrified from of the lines. So we have to find some solution regarding this. This on the one hand. So we need novel solution. Where we should allow ourselves to go new steps, to try new approaches. Is on the one hand. The other hand is for sure the digitalization of the trains, which is very, very necessary, because if we are talking about the autonomous driven trains, then it's not only the driver who pushes the beam forward or back. It's much more. He has to analyze. He has to analyze the line. He has to analyze the health of the vehicle. For example, he has to analyze the health of the track. This is what everything a driver does. And we have to find some solutions how we can combine this with the autonomous driving. So maybe something like a sensor system within the train, within the lines, within the tracks, which has to consider now and for which we have to find a solution. One topic is, you said 20 years in future. Well, we have the problem in the railway sector. 30 years are nothing for us. The trains which are built at the moment will live at least 30 years. So we have to think about what we can do as fast as possible. And we have to allow ourselves to go a new way, for example. A very important issue, in my opinion, is to integrate the rail-based transport in the complete modality, in the mean of transport. Because I think and then we come back what also Stefan said, if we are in the car, you stay in the car. If you have the possibility to have a different kind of mobility, for example, that you get caught from autonomous vehicle to the next station, and at the station there is already a train waiting, then you shift to the train. I would like to say this completely. This is a very large approach. It's a system. It's a large system. In my opinion, the railway sector, the railway system is the most complicated system because we have influence direct from the infrastructure to the operation to the vehicle. So it's a very, very, very large approach which we have there. And I think for the future, we have to address these topics. But I think we are in a very good way because what I summarized very short is something which is also considered in the ERGU project, for example. They were discussing such topics. There we are go deep inside these open questions. But I think we have the technical possibility, and for the future there would be a great chance, a chance to realize something like this. What is still limiting is the regulatories. This is a large challenge also for the future.
Regulatory is a political challenge for our elected representative. I go with the next, Andreas. Imagine we are able to deliver such a modular pods that can be used for regular passenger, but also can be adapted for emergency situations. How would it look? Like the perfect response, the perfect modular train with pods to be brought to a disaster. How do you imagine? How could
like the perfect train? I mean,
yeah, like
in that case, when I was watching that video that you had made so nicely on your homepage, you had these flying pods.
Yeah.
So if you could integrate the flying pods with the train, you could actually fly out and pick the patients up and bring them back for treatment. And I mean, it's not just for war or pandemics or anything like that. I mean, also in the regular care, if you are in a remote part of Sweden or also Central Europe, and you get a stroke, and you're not within 45 minutes from a university hospital, then you're going to be paralyzed in some way. But if you're close to our hospital or La Pitié in Paris or something like that, they will actually go up into the brain and pick that thumb out, and you will recover completely. And so we have today we have a huge discrepancy of the healthcare that can be provided between the major cities and the countryside. So I mean, I don't say that we could have hospital trains everywhere, but it's a possibility to equalize healthcare over Europe. So that might be an interesting concept.
Regional areas. Regional areas is something that we are concerned about, because railways not always are able to reach these areas, and they vote and they won elections as well, because the election system, the counting vote system, is designed so the regional areas have a weight in the results. Traditionally, and seeing in the last years, with this privatization of the mobility, we've seen how many lines have been abandoned or decreasing their use, and seeing how our railway system, our railway coverage, it's being lost to a minimum, and then the operator decides, okay, this is not profitable, close. What is the possibility that we can revitalize those lines? Which systems are you considering? I listened first to Marian. She was talking about projects being developed in France with small units covering those small distance. What projects, what ideas is something that is considered priority at some point in your company? It's only depending on the political will. What can you say about the revitalizing those lines, giving coverage to regional areas?
Yeah. I mean, one thing we have to acknowledge is that the regional line will never be profitable. Yeah. So I think that's a bit of a given component. But the question is, how much deficit does it produce every year? And I think that's where technology jumps into the picture. And I think with the technology, and this is, let's say, compared to FP7, it's more conservative. Yeah, all the technologies that we are developing in the FP6 have the target to make it building, operating, maintaining a regional line, make it less expensive, or to put it again to the political perspective, to make it harder for politicians to close down regional lines. That's a bit the target of FP6 as a whole. Coming specifically to your question, we have a work package which deals with information systems. And here I want to come to the aspect of demand responsive traffic. So I think there are IT solutions being developed, which really are very demand orientated. And I think that's where also the two FPs fit together, the FP6 with the suddenly being the big guys with the big trains, and FP7 with the very individualistic approaches, which are very much on demand based. So if you have intelligent apps which allow you to say, like, okay, tomorrow at 10 o'clock, I need a ride from A to B to reach the doctor. If these systems, this information is compiled in an intelligent way, I think then even in the rural areas, we should have alternatives than to have, let's say, 20 or 30 cars driving from the village into the next regional capital. So I think there's brain work to be invested in the topic. And I think with this demand responsive traffic solutions that we are building, I think we're taking a right step.
And we have the technology, the vehicles, and the people to deliver that kind of service. The vehicles, for example.
I think we have a given situation. We have the vehicles that we have today, and then there's the work package, which goes very much into light vehicles, yeah, which I think, especially the regional lines, because there's less traffic. Yeah, we even have the so-called G2 lines. I don't know if everybody knows. These are the regional lines which are non-interoperable, which are disconnected from the main network. There you have simply more freedom to go into innovative solutions which are easier to be implemented than to the operable line, which fall under a very strict regulatory regimes, I would say. Yeah. So we have this as is situation, and I would say on the hardware, and I'm coming from the IT side. Yeah. So on the hardware side, on the vehicle side, there are developments, but I would say there's an equal potential on the software, on the brain work that we have. And I think here we have to play a role and think of Uber. Yeah. We all look at Uber. They revolutionized the taxi business by, in the end, a very simple approach. Yeah. And that within a couple of years. Why not do similar things? And there are millions of arguments against that. Yeah, but the way we plan trips on railways today is still a bit, let's say, very traditional. So I think, especially in this demand responsive approach, we have a card to play that is not yet played.
So in some way, it is possible to introduce such kind of innovation. I was also talking about safety protocols and how to deal with that in a dysregulated small transactions, which are out of the strong national safety authority.
Absolutely. Those are these G2 lines where you have simply more flexibility, where different speeds are being driven, less frequencies, often single track, low frequency lines. This is a bit of a different environment. So let's have not one, let's say, maximum approach, one fits everything, but to say like, okay, we have let's say a secondary network where we can apply different regulations.
Thank you. I will continue the round, and I want to tell the audience to think about questions in any area, safety, vehicles, whatever. Because when I finish the round, I will ask the audience if they want to ask our splendorous panelists today. So our next panelist, I got caught by what you say about the plastic and wood. Can you elaborate how, I mean, in certain way, it would be possible to substitute in a vehicle? At what level substitute the plastic that is produced with the use of oil, of course, by wood solutions? Are in the same range? Can you give like a brief overview on this substitution? Is it something possible? Is it something completely impossible at any kind of level?
That's a very interesting question, because substitution is a thing which we learned is the least productive way, or the least cost-efficient way to really substitute a material with another, because every material has its strengths. And of course, there are core strengths of plastics. There's nothing to say about that. But if we want to use wood, we have an engineering department which is very early on in the development. And if you hear these are life cycles of 30 years, we have to be very early on to see which functions do you need in a certain room, which safety things have to be there. And the OEMs in the automotive are going currently a very brave approach, and really working with new materials, with new functions, with all these things in a new way. So they are not saying this or that material is bad, but which material has the best function-oriented approach for that thing? Is it maybe something in the interior? Is it in the exterior? And what's interesting there is that there is often a hybrid combination. Maybe there's a hybrid combination of renewable materials plus something which is made of reused plastics and so on. And this is also a regulatory thing, because the European Union, out of this 25% regulation, is really driving us in a situation where we often stick to materials which are there and which are oil-based, because there's so much of that. So the amount of plastics we need will also double or triple in the next years. We have to cope with that. Also, the reused plastics is not often able to be used in the same station as we had it before. We have to downgrade it. And so sometimes our regulations, which are well meant, are backfiring. And this is a thing where I have to say, okay, I can do a lot in the car, but if I'm forced to use a lot of the cars existing already, I have an even harder job. But to answer your question very directly, I think it's often a hybrid approach out of material. It's really important to think about more than one life cycle. We're not talking about linear business models anymore. We're talking with our customer in every aspect of a third, fifth life cycle for the product, because we want to have the CO2 stored as long as a new tree needs to grow. We have to do a lot also in the forest to be prepared for that. But that's a thing. There's no easy answer on that. It's a combination of all the things. I have to say, I think OEMs are prepared for that. We have to put the regulatory things on it, and there's a lot of room to really have functions on renewable materials within cars or also with rail vehicles.
Can you elaborate a little bit on the second life of wood products? Are they, in which extent are they, again, to be introduced in the system?
That's interesting. Think about it's a customer behavior. Think about your floor at home. Maybe you have a parquet floor. Then it has at least 2.5 millimeters wood on the upper surface. It's meant to be reused. It's meant to be to have a professional there and really give it a new outfit or style. How many of you have ever done that? So the thing is really, of course, what we have to do, or we have to prepare for a second life cycle and what happens with it. And in the automotive industry is interesting. They are thinking about reusability. So having different connections, so having different interfaces of the parts of the car itself, so that at the end you really can switch it out, so that it's not clipped in and destroyed if you reuse it. So the second life cycle is often to really reuse it. The next thing is, in the second or third step, not to use it in a formal way, not to burn it, but maybe to have it in smaller strands. There's I think also a Spanish company now, which really brings that in complete 3D formed shapes in a second life. Then you can bring it to furnitures, and at the end you can bring it to with more resin-based things on it to make it capable of exterior things. So there are ways to really store the CO2 in that. And there's a last thing from that side. It's even unclear nowadays how to calculate it really. What I mean with it. Second life, what does it mean? A zero-based approach, or am I allowed to use virgin material also in the second step? And how do I count it? We are often named as double counting emissions because we are really telling people there's a tree growing while we're storing the CO2. But that's the case because in PFC or FSC certificate for us, there's really trees growing. And so, as I said, there's a huge amount of things. It's also a complex system. Also, this reuse, this recycle thing is a complex system, but we have to do it. We have to establish those cycles. And this is the visionary background of our company, to really think in sustainable, reusable materials as a CO2 storage.
Thank you. Reusability and also modularity. We've been talking about the pods, and for the moment we just talk about the person transport. But what about freight? I would like to ask you, Jens, to give us a brief overview on what can we expect on freight. If it's something that railways were created for from the very beginning, was for transporting from the mines to the factories, and this is something that has also been suffering railways on gaining again the freight segment. Modularity in freights, yeah, of course, containers, shipping containers, and all continental containers with different shapes and different uses, etc. Can you elaborate on what a pod system could bring into the freight segment, and how could be a system like this being profitable or business model for the future?
Very interesting question, because the freight is a very, very important topic, and it will be a very important topic. But you're completely right that in the beginning of the railway and at the moment, there's still a lot of very heavy goods which are transported by the railway. For example, iron ore, coal, or something like this. And it's not what we would like to transport with our pods. If you consider the change of the kind of freight and goods, it's more in direction of high volume, low density goods. This means high value goods, which have to be transported. And this is a very large market, and it's an increasing market, because the other market, coal and so on, it's not so much increasing also in the future if you consider some analysis. So we have to find a solution how we can transport such goods. And if we consider the pod system, then we have for sure during the rush hours we have a lot of passengers. And we need some pods, some carriers who are transporting this passenger, these people. But beside the rush hour, what can you make with the carrier, for example? On the one hand, they could stand and wait until the next rush hour comes, or they could use it for something else. And for this reason, it's possible for sure to transport goods during this time. But not only during this time, it's also thinkable that if you have the pod system, as a passenger, you don't care what is in the next pod behind you. If it is our goods or something else, we are completely open what is being transported regarding the demand, which is existing at the moment every time. And you also have the possibility, or due to the connection of the pods from one hub to maybe one village or something like this, you need to transfer also the good freight from the hub to the rural area, for example. So you can use the existing infrastructure, the existing carrier system, on one hand for freight, on one hand for passenger. And this is a very open topic. And if you think about the past, in the past we had such trains. It was very difficult. You have the mixture train, for example. One part was freight wagons, one part was passenger cars, or also not so long ago, you have some freight areas, some parcel areas in the trains. And now, by this new approach of the pod system, you have everything available. So you have the technology that you can take the containers, put them onto a road area, for example, and this could be the same carrier system like we have for passenger. So there's a large degree of freedom which is increasing by doing this pod system.
Just before going to Andreas, now that you can mention this, I need to go to the operator. Freight passenger trains combined has been something that has been not common since I don't know, the last 9 trains with with cars transported. It's something that you could even consider. Now that the Austrian Railways has been, from my understanding, the only is not completely abandoning the night trains. And now we see a renaissance, and you are on the forefront. So all concept combined freight trains with passenger trains, or modular trains with pods or containers or whichever. Is this something that could be explored?
Well, we have two things. We have the night trains where you also load your car and you go long distance. I think this is a hard business. Because the challenge is it never fits. In holiday times you have not the capacity that you need to offer, and out of the main season you run with 20% of loading of your train. So that's coming again to demand responsiveness. That is the challenge, yeah. But I would say this is the overall long distance view. Now I want to jump in again in the regional railways, yeah. On the regional side, there's a potential, and I would even say the short and medium distances. That's where the combination of freight and passenger makes sense.
The transport of micro mobility devices, not only e-scooters, but other bicycles or small carriages. It's something that is considered as well in the regional transport, like the person plus its micro mobility carriage, so he or she is able to, one, reaching the station, reaching the house. Those kinds of things are every Sunday. The trains coming to Berlin from the outskirts, they are completely full with the bicycles. There's no more room for this, and of course they have it in mind, but there is not this. It's something that they do as a response to a demand that is existing, but it's not something that they foresee as a possibility to enable this kind of.
I think railway operators are indeed in a responsive role. They react to customer requirements. Yeah? But if you see the next generation of vehicles, they give more and more space to exactly these type of things with flexible seating, with bringing higher amount of folding bikes. I mean, you know, that again depends then on the individual regulations. For example, in my country, when it's a folding bike, it's accepted as a kind of a hand luggage. You have no limit as such. Yeah. Whereas you take a long distance train, yeah, you have sometimes only 6 spaces for bicycles. So that's again the challenge. I think the railway operators are indeed responsive, but I look at the car design for the future that needs more interior flexibility. It exactly to cover those needs. So the trend is going in the right direction.
Right. One question for Mr. Liliequist. You are usually in conversation with emergency persons in the military and as well in the social response or societal response. Of course, no one wants war. And that's something that looks in our minds as pessimistic, but the threat is there. I mean, we see politicians being elected, we see shifts in power, we see threats everywhere, and it seems that the countries are being prepared or wanting to prepare for such a scenario that no one wants. But the ability of one country to be prepared for such a threat, it's also a military investment in that way, like the preparation of the country to be able to respond, to have the healthcare to be able to be delivered where it's necessary, not only in terms of war, but also in terms of emergency. Now we've seen with all these climate disasters. So can you elaborate a little bit on this? If it's disclosed, if you can disclose something about what you told me?
Well, thank you for the question. And I think that in terms of the risk of war, I think that both the preparation of healthcare services and also transportation is part of the total defense. And the better prepared we are, the higher the threshold we maintain, prevent anything from happening. So I really think that and also I think that what has proven in this today is that we really need to start to talk to each other across the borders between healthcare, transportation, and all other kind of civil services, because we all live in our own little bubbles, so to speak. And we'll know very little, but I mean, I think this day has been really amazing for me just to step out of my own bubble in healthcare and just listening to you and what you're doing. So yeah, I think that there's much to do about this. And I mean, if you take the question about hospital trains, I think that if anything would happen, we know for sure that the demand will be there and it will be immediate. And from the experience from previous wars was that the preparation for this was zero. So better prepare.
Thank you. I would like to open the question for anyone that would like to ask anything to our panelists. Please, any question? Anyone wants to know about the healthcare or hydrogen?
There is a question over there from today. Stand up, or I hope you can hear me.
Yes.
Yeah, thanks for all your interesting topics. I would like to ask something regarding the healthcare use case and regional trains. So when we talk about innovation in this innovation event, I was asking myself, is such a use case doable with existing technologies that we have, or with the existing or ongoing developments? For example, in flagship project 6, is it with what we have or what is going on, or what do we need to achieve it? We need to implement such a use case in transport system. Do you know what I mean?
I'm asking myself, are you referring to a specific use case? I'm not sure if I fully understand your question.
Let's say the use case that you introduced, like a healthcare use case or rescue use case, maybe not in a war zone, but in a regional area where hospitals are being locked down. So my background, maybe I come from the southern German, I live in the southern German area, where some of the hospitals are affected by the, let's say, cost changes. They have to be efficient, they have to be economical. That means hospitals in the rural areas are being shut down, meanwhile the bigger hospitals get more special. I think this was one part of your...
Yeah, and I think that that's definitely a trend, because the smaller hospital just can't provide the services that's demanded now, because you need to accumulate huge number of patients to a specific place to do like neurological interventions or highly advanced treatments. And I mean, everyone expects to get them. But few knows that if you live in a small city, that little hospital, they can never ever do it. I mean, they have too few patients. Even if they get the equipment, which would be super expensive, the doctors there won't see enough of these highly specialized cases to get the experience to do it in a good way. So if you're in Sweden, you really want to end up in Karolinska, where I work, it's going to be a different, even though they have the machine in my hometown in Sundsvall, which is like a small industrial town in northern Sweden. They can't really provide the same thing. So, and in that perspective, also hospital trains and pods could be part of a solution with moving patients from rural areas, smaller hospitals. Maybe you have stabilized the patient, you can move them, or it's just elderly patients that are sick and they need to be moved between the hospitals back and forth, and the pod system could be a part of that kind of transportation solution as well.
If I can respond to that question, it relates to the business model of the whole system. In fact, there is no issue of having the vehicle representing kind of the piece of the hospital train, because what we talk about is the owner of the vehicle. Essentially, we have various numerous vehicle owners on the railways.
Yeah.
So if there is an entity that will be ordering, building, and maintaining such a train,
it's perfectly feasible to put it on a track and to move it everywhere you want, because you can order the pass and you can go, or you can even have an extraordinary pass.
Yeah.
But we don't talk about a railway now. We talk about more as, is there an entity ready to invest into such a train? Which is less question to the railway. It's a question to those who are in charge of that. So health and care offices or services.
Yeah. Yeah, that's a really good point. And I mean, it's already difficult. I only know what it works like in Sweden, but I mean, even within our region, we have different owners of the different hospitals, and everyone is fighting about the resources. Even in that little area, I mean, I can imagine it between countries. And in that case, I mean, in a European setting, the European Union would need to own it, and who's going to staff it, and it's going to be NATO or
which likely be the case.
Yeah.
It will be a NATO sources on NATO budget.
But the problem with NATO, sorry, but I can just comment on NATO. The problem with NATO is like the military, they are really only taking care about wounded soldiers, because their mission is to deliver violence in some direction. So they don't actually care about the civilian population, not in that sense. So you would need another owner. Sorry. Yeah.
I think it's not the question like to finance such a hospital train. I think it's the question of the system. So is it not, or why is it not possible to build up a flexible system for emergencies, catastrophes, and then for the medical service, which is so flexible that it could be used as a mobile hospital and easily transported.
Yeah.
And not a train like we knew from 40 years ago. So the last hospital trains were closed.
Yeah, like a mobile and scalable system that can be like, and then it could be mass produced. And if you could like,
but you still have to find a body that is going to be paying for that.
Yeah.
Always. You cannot extract it and say that you have a system which is called the railway and there will be something inside. It's not like that.
My question or my comment is, such a system has some advantages. Could be used as a mobile hospital. It could be easily transported with classic railway, with classic trucks, maybe with such a new system. And it's not a hospital, it's not a train.
I completely agree with you. And
system.
I agree with you, and I have an example. One of my colleagues is on his spare time running a hospital in Madagascar, outside Tanzania, and for some reason and some corruption, and this hospital all of a sudden closed. But the city has like 1.3 million inhabitants, and they didn't have any solution for like. So, and because we were just discussing this for fun, but in theory, you could put the pods on just a freight ship and deliver them to a harbor. And as long as you have power, if they are self-sufficient with oxygen, you could actually deliver healthcare somewhere else also, if you have a flexible system.
Yeah. There's one question, different perspective. What happens if you take this module, this medical module, and put it from city to city, to do pre-checks, medical pre-checks, and all that capacity stuff, which is frequently what is business of ambulances in a city. So you are using this module to do a CT, frequently CT of the brain or MRT of the brain, also to push away the capacity problem of emergency rooms, for instance. So you have a best example in Norway. They use ships, small ships with doctors on board, and they go from Haber city to Haber city and check the people there. So the medical service is coming to you, not you are going to the hospital. So that would be also in
one of our discussed use cases in the Pods4Rail project, that we use this module as a medical service unit, for instance.
Yeah. So, I think that you could like use the pod if you make like a general pod, then you could fill it with different types of healthcare, but you have to have like the basic necessities, basic necessities of healthcare. Like so you have, and then you can attach a CT scanner, operating table, or an ICU bed, or a cardiac checkups or whatever. So.
Business a service for insurances also.
But investments or insurance companies or private.
Yeah.
Okay, so at this point, I want to ask you to forgo for lunch, and I want to thank you, the panelists. It was a very vivid, enlightening presentation in which we learn about the possible business model, applications, possible ways of regenerating and gaining back areas in the regional areas, applications of this new old material, which is wood, and future visions on the utilization of the railway system in the future. So thank you very much, and we are very happy that we can go now to have lunch that Roman has prepared
Yes.
for us. So